Welcome back to the Tip of the Ice-Burgh podcast, presented as always by the Hockey Podcast Network. We are joined now by a very special guest. We want to welcome onto the show Jordan, who is a host of both the Helmet Hair podcast and on the Yinzhers podcast. Jordan, welcome to the show, and thank you so much for doing this.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. It's been way too long since I've talked Penguins hockey with anybody, so I am ready to go.
Well, we're glad you decided to jump back in with us, and we will have plenty of Penguins talk to come. But before we get into that, I just wanted to ask you, what got you into podcasting in the first place?
A little thing called the coronavirus. I had a lot of time on my hands, and it was something that I wanted to do. So it's not like quarantine sparked this idea in me that I, never had before. But I just would kind of randomly throw out there from time to time different opinions and thoughts and rants that I would have about the Steelers and the Penguins on my Instagram story. And I was surprised by the response that it got, because I was just doing it for cathartic purposes for myself and maybe to help other fans find solace in what this was like when all of the Le'Veon Bell stuff was happening and Antonio Brown was going off the deep end. But most of the people who responded don't pay attention to sports at all. And they commented on how much they appreciated it. And I realized that I love talking about sports in a way that make other people who might not care about them start to care about them. So it was one of those things where people started saying, you should do a podcast. And I thought, how? And then just over the years, I kind of accumulated different gear and the right software. And then the pandemic hit, and it's like, well, probably now or never. So let's do it. And got into it, and it's been just super fun. It's been such a blast.
Now, has it been difficult at all for you at breaking into, and honestly, absolutely killing it, if I do say so myself, in a predominantly male-dominated platform of sports talking? You have just been soaring through it with almost ease.
I
think at least from the outside, sorry.
Yeah, I just don't really pay attention to it. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. I see myself as me. So I don't really think that there's anything spectacular about what I'm doing. I'm just sharing thoughts and things that I notice and observations and opinions. And I always kind of felt like if people enjoy them, great. And if not, they don't have to listen to me. It's not a big deal. And I think that honestly, what has helped me more than anything has been the lack of pressure that I've put on myself and on the podcast to really do anything or be anything, because it's kind of taken that weight off of me that I know a lot of people do feel, where it anything like that comes with the competitive nature of the business, because a lot of the time it can feel like if somebody else is successful, then they're taking the success away from you. And it's tricky as a woman. It is. The dynamic there is odd and it's a little off balance. But again, if people are saying stuff to me, I don't respond, or I say something back. But try to be kind, and then I just ignore them or mute them or something. I don't know. I know that I'm very sensitive, so I take stuff to heart. So I don't feel like it's worth my time or my emotional energy to really fixate on that, which I would if I let myself. So there's been good and bad and challenges, and obviously still come with rejection in some ways. But I think that honestly, my personal experience has been pretty par for the course as far as what it's been like to try to break into this industry and be another voice. But I think that it's always an area where we can have more voices, because there's room for people in the conversation.
Yeah, it's good always having, more voices and extra, views on things. But one thing that makes, your shows a little different is that from ours at least, is you cover multiple teams. And I just want to know the dynamic of what is it like covering multiple teams that are, in season at different times, and also which team do you have the most fun with when it comes to, putting it all on recording?
Well, the Penguins are my favorite. They're my absolute heart. So that as soon as the season started in January, that was really my first extended opportunity covering them in any capacity, because they were in the bubble for a week and then they were done. So there wasn't a whole lot that happened. That was just, oh my goodness. I had so much fun talking about the Penguins, not only on my show, but on Twitter too. I really loved getting more plugged into Penguins Twitter and connecting with people who love the Penguins, because it feels like the subsect of Twitter that is all devoted to Steelers fans, and the team, like the Steelers fans on Twitter, they're very, very vocal and they're very present all the time. So it's a little bit harder to find the Penguins fans, but they're the diamonds in the rough, in my opinion. But I really enjoyed that. I do love the Steelers. I think that they've been a very up and down roller coaster of a team as of late. So they've given me a lot more content to complain about than I was anticipating. So that's kind of been fun in its own right, because I'm still emotionally invested in the Steelers, but not nearly as much as the Penguins. Like, I think part of why I took most of June off was because I was just like, I need to recover from that playoff series. That was rough. And the Pirates are the Pirates, so there's really not much to talk about there. I talked about them a little bit last summer when they started up again, because that was really the first live sports that started happening after I launched Helmet here. So it's just fun. It gives it some diversity, and it keeps it from ever, not that I think it would, but it just keeps it fresh. Like, and it kind of keeps me on my toes too, because I have to be paying attention to what's going on across not just the Pittsburgh teams, but across all of the professional leagues, which I enjoy, because I don't know, I think it's so fun. I love doing this stuff.
With that, let's jump a little bit more into the Pittsburgh Penguins. You said that they have your heart, and that's what we're here to talk about. And looking at them, what do you think they're missing to become more of a postseason contender again, before the Crosby and Malkin era comes to an end, which we don't know when it is, but it seems like everybody says it's coming to an end soon. So what are they missing right now?
The thing that they were missing in the playoffs was consistent goaltending. And I think, I don't know, it's really difficult to say, because, looking at the way the regular season plays out, from officiating to standings to all the different factors that are at play at once, to the way that the postseason always plays out in the NHL. It just feels like the rule book goes out the window. There's not a salary cap, so teams can get away with a lot more than they could in the regular season. And it's just, I don't know, it's a different beast. So it's hard to compare. That being said, I'm going to compare, because in the regular season, when both Tristan Jarry and Casey DeSmith were healthy, if Tristan Jarry had a bad game, Sully would sit him, he'd play DeSmith, and DeSmith would play lights out for the most part. He had a really very solid, consistent season. And unfortunately, down the stretch, he just got hurt and he was out, and they didn't really have the 1-2 punch. And I think, I don't know, I'm just speculating, because goaltender is just such a mental position. And if you get in your head, it was always very obvious when Jari was on his game and when he wasn't, because he just looked small in the crease and he was very beatable and he was making stupid decisions. And I think that the fact that they didn't have not even like, I know a lot of people are saying that they need to go out and get a veteran goalie. Mm-hmm. And maybe they do. I don't know, but maybe they don't. Maybe they just didn't have that other guy that had chemistry with the team and had experience with the team like Casey DeSmith. And it took a toll on Tristan Jarry and on what ended up being their season's outcome. I don't know. But other than that, they did play really well against the Islanders. And down the stretch of the regular season, they were looking like they were one of the teams to beat. Like, I'm not saying they would have beat the Lightning or heck, even the Canadians, who knows? But I think that they were playing that to that level that people would have had them in that conversation had they had better goaltending. But, oh gosh, I don't know.
Well, I hate to pile on the goaltending questions, but since you just talked a lot about it, I will kind of focus in on one part of this question that I had, which is, are you concerned with Tristan Jarry as the Penguins starter going forward?
Yes, I think so. I don't know. I try not to get too fatalistic whenever things like that happen. And he did not look good. I don't know. If they leave the goalie situation as is, then I will be concerned. I think they need to do something to shake it up a little bit. Maybe not dump him, but maybe not rely on him as the number one guy. I feel like this season he's really going to have to bounce back and prove that he is worthy of that role, because he had some very questionable games even in the regular season going into the playoffs, where I just think that they probably need to reevaluate. I wouldn't say that he's a wash at this point, but is that kind of the trajectory that it looks like he's headed in? Maybe. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I'm completely opposite. I'm fully on board with maybe he can still cut it. I mean, I'm more of a optimist when it comes to Penguins goalies. I mean, I was on the Murray train until the very last day, I think. I mean, it took the bubble playoffs for me, I think, but
you're talking to a guy that's still on the Johan Hedberg train in Horwat.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Listen, if we would have lost in 2016, I wouldn't have been that mad because he was the goaltending coach on San Jose that year. But no, I'm still on Jarry's side with this. And plus, it's according to what management has been saying, they're going to be rolling with him anyway. I can see where you're coming from with, and I see where everyone's coming from with picking up some sort of veteran backup that can, be more of a 1A and 1B rather than the actual full-on A and B.
Mm-hmm.
Brlansky, you got your take?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Jordan. I think there's something that needs to be changed. I'm not sure what it is. I don't get paid to know what it is, luckily, because I would have no idea what to do. But something in that conversation with Jarry and DeSmith, it feels like something needs to be switched up. So I agree with you, Jordan, in that, but I don't know that the answer is at this point.
I think that Penguins fans just have absurdly high expectations of goalies.
Always.
It's, they're always anticipating before they've even given a guy a chance, him to come out and be Andrei Vasilevsky. And there are very few of those in the world, let alone in the NHL. Like, that's elite level talent, and finding that as a goalie that's sustainable, very difficult.
Yeah, it's hard whenever this fan base watched Tom Barrasso win 2 in a row up to a weird era of nobodies and then Fleury for 3. So we expect stars to be our goalies, basically.
Yeah.
And it's not always easy to find.
Yeah,
It isn't. And that's okay. As long as you can find like a competent goalie that isn't going to crap the bed. But unfortunately, whether or not ours is competent, I don't know, but he did crap the bed. So
let's talk a little bit about the expansion draft, because that is coming up in less than 2 weeks at this point.
Yeah.
So who do you think the Penguins are going to lose to Seattle when that happens?
I'm hopeful, not because I don't like him, but because of what he's making and what he's producing, that it's Jason Zucker. I think that he's been fine for the Penguins, but I mean, way better than, Derek Brassard ever was, but he still hasn't ever clicked into place. And that might not be entirely on him because of the amount of injuries that the Penguins have had, and then the line shuffling that they've had to do in response to those injuries. But looking at all of the other forwards, so it's probably, I'm assuming Seattle's going to take a forward. They're definitely not going to take our goalie. But I don't know. I think it's going to be Zucker because he's a really solid second, third line guy and very likable. It seems like wherever he goes, people respond really well to him. He's got a good locker room presence, and he's a great teammate. Like that was where his value really shone through in the types of plays that he would make that weren't flashy, but they're blocking the puck and chasing after the puck and hustling and giving that extra oomph to break up a play. Like he's really good in that regard. And maybe I'm talking myself out of wanting to see him go. I think it'll be him, but we won't. It's hard to say before the protected lists come out.
Yeah.
And it's harder this year because it's not a certain answer, much like it was last time.
Yeah, we knew.
Yeah. Aside from the expansion drafts taking someone, what do you think the biggest move the Penguins make this offseason? And could it be this new development of Vladimir Tarasenko being wanting out of St. Louis?
I didn't know that was a thing.
There
So is he being linked to the Penguins?
Yeah, immediately. No, I mean, immediately after it was kind of announced that Tarasenko requested a trade, Pittsburgh was one of the teams tied to him as a possibility. So I don't know if it is actually a possibility, but it has been brought up as one.
Shoot. Well, I wouldn't hate that. Dang. I know that everybody in the Pittsburgh media is really quick to jump onto different trains. And I think that it's really hard to say because this is the first off season that Ron Hextall and Brian Burke are in management with the Penguins. So, and they're really being quiet about their plans and about their strategy, which I love because everybody could kind of anticipate what Jim Rutherford was going to do there at the end. He was a loose cannon, but a pretty predictable one. I think what the Penguins do with the whole Mike Matheson, Cody Ceci situation, because I know Cody Ceci's contract is up. If they're going to re-sign him or let him go, Mike Matheson's contract is not ideal, even for as well as he played, in all honesty. And then the other thing that I've been very I'm trying to think of the word. I'm sort of keeping my eye on it, but with a grain of salt. the situation with Evgeny Malkin and Chris Letang, because of course, whenever the Penguins fail, those are the two first guys to go. I don't know why. It has never made sense to me, but with their contracts being close to the end, now it at least holds some weight, because what do you do with these aging core in general? That has, seen a first round exit for the last 3 postseasons. And now I guess I'll be trying to pay attention to what's going on with Vlad, because that could be pretty cool. Yeah. So besides that, what are you guys looking for, paying attention to?
Oh, I'm not even sure.
Definitely looking to see if Hextall and Burke decide to try to extend Malkin or Letang. That's going to be something that initially was on the forefront of my mind going into this offseason. But then there's so many more storylines. As you mentioned, the fact that they've kind of been Fort Knox. They've made basically one move in the 6 months since they took over. And it was a good move, but it didn't really tell where they wanted to go in the future with this franchise. So what they're going to do in this offseason, especially with an expansion draft, with a lot of big name free agents and a lot of players on wanting to be on the move, at least with the trade, I'm not sure what's going to happen. The Vladimir Tarasenko thing, the fact that they even tied him to Pittsburgh is interesting. I know coming off of 3 straight shoulder surgeries is not an easy thing to do, especially when the first 2 were apparently botched. But I think right now all focus is on Seattle, but after that, it's kind of a crapshoot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can't think of too many other names specifically that could find their way here, because I haven't been paying enough attention to it. I've kind of just been waiting for the full offseason to actually start. So now it's here, and Tarasenko decided to try and steal headlines on the day that the Lightning won. So
literally in the middle of the game, too.
Yeah,
I was like,
oh wow.
Okay. Well put out by Jeremy Rutherford of The Athletic. But to bring it back to a little bit more of a at-home topic, following you this season, there were a lot of jersey purchases. I just want to know, how many Pittsburgh Penguins jerseys do you own?
Let me do the math really quick.
Because it did seem like almost after every game, you're like, should I do it? And I was trying to keep track of which times you bought it and which times you didn't. So do you know how many?
I think I actually bought like 2 or 3 jerseys this year. So it was a very small percentage of the times that I'd threatened. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13, 14 jerseys. I
think you still have me and Horwat beat combined.
I have way too many. Jerseys. Yeah.
Never such thing as way too many. I would never think there's way too many.
Yeah, maybe that's part of the problem for me, is that I say that so I sound like I don't have a problem, but I don't mean it. I never mean that there are too many. Because that's not a thing. But yeah, 14, 15, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely did seem like you were on the path of getting to that during the season. But two or three, I would say probably 2 or 3 is about where most Penguins fans that are as avid as you seem to be would be at. But there was a moment there where every game I was like, is she still buying all of these jerseys?
I think the threat of like the Fanatics Shop screenshot became a pretty good meme over the course of the year. I think I saw a couple people definitely doing it.
Yeah, it was fun. And I had no idea. It was just another one of those things that, like, I did it as a joke, and then people kind of seemed to enjoy it. So then I did it again, and then just kept doing it for the rest of the season. And yeah, I saw other people posting it, and then people would tag me in their screenshots of jerseys in their cart and be like, should I do it? Yes, of course you should. What kind of question is that?
To follow up on that, which one was your first and which one is your favorite?
My first Penguins jersey was a Phil Kessel jersey 3-4 years ago now, I think. Oh, my favorite. That's really tough. I think I'm going to have to probably go with either my home Brandon Tanev jersey, because I just adore him, or the reverse retro John Marino that I got for Christmas last year.
Good answers.
Definitely two solid choices.
Yeah, they're just so beautiful. Oh.
Brlansky, do yours next since she said the name.
Yeah, I was about to say, if you don't mind me jumping in front of you on this question, I actually had it down here. What is your favorite Brandon Tanev moment? Go ahead.
I love just the generic moment watching him in warm-ups, the way that he sporadically and just maniacally skates around the ice and doesn't really look like he's doing anything specific. He's just going insane. I love that. And I think my favorite moment with him was the sheriff one. That was just so good. And the way that it all unfolded, and he's just so, his chirps are just next level. And that, oh my goodness, it became such a great thing. And it felt like it was one of those moments in a season where you win the Stanley Cup and you look back on it as like one of those cult classic moments. And that's where we were going, but no.
I think one of mine that it relates to a win was whenever we won, and he basically punched Crosby in the face. That one I loved a lot.
It was great.
Because that's kind of what the emotion was, and that was just a first round victory. So
yeah.
Great stuff. But now for the rest of the league, and the last question here, what team are you most and least excited about seeing? Like a team that we didn't see last year, now that everything's back to normal sort of, and it's not just division play.
I'm not going to lie. I'm really looking forward to seeing them play the Lightning, just because I feel like with how dominant the Lightning have been, that's going to be a really solid test of how relevant the Penguins still are. I think that out of any team in the league, the Lightning are the least beatable, I guess, because they're really good at adapting their play to outplay basically anybody. And that's it. It went to 7 games against the Islanders, but they still found a way to beat them. And I, as annoyed as I am that the Lightning won back-to-back, I don't really have an issue with them as a team. Like I think all of the players on their team are really rather likable, and they're fun to watch when they are playing a team that's even remotely in their league. So I'm looking forward to that. And I think out west, I'm really looking forward to seeing them play the Avalanche at some point, because I love Colorado. And I was really bummed that their season ended the way it did, because it looked like they were primed for something really special too, but just no dice for them either, I guess.
Yeah, after winning the first 6 games of the playoffs, especially the way that they dispatched the Blues extremely easily, and what they did to Vegas in game 1, it was kind of almost crazy to see them drop 4 straight the way they did.
It was wild.
Now, also, I think there's a little bit of a reason there, too, is the fact that that's the first time Brandon Tanev endeared himself to Pittsburgh. Was his overtime winner back in, I think it was, 2019?
Yep.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Yep. Wow, that was a good moment. It's a great moment.
The start of it all.
Back and realizing that he had the same celly back then as he did in game 3 of the New York Islanders series. And then you love adding the flow and the salad and everything else. So, I mean, just great moments from Brandon Tanev altogether. Obviously, that would probably be the biggest blow to see if he ended up being taken by Seattle. But I don't know. I feel like there's some other players there that are a little bit more desirable for Seattle, like you mentioned, a Zucker. So definitely hoping Tanev is able to stay mainly for the mic'd up moments throughout a full season. That's what we want to see.
That's right. That's what we live for.
Well, Jordan, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you giving us a couple minutes of your time, and just let our listeners know where they can find you on social media and what's coming up for you on both of your podcasts.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. This was a blast. I had so much fun. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram. My personal handle is at Fidge Newton, FIDGE. And then my podcast is at Helmet Hair Pod. And then if you want to follow Yinzhers, you can. That's at Yinzhers with an H. And as of right now, we're kind of, for Yinzhers, getting ramped up for the preseason training camp, Steelers season, because we're 2 months out from that at this point, which is crazy. So we're just trying to plan and get stuff locked in, different events and tailgates and all that good stuff. And then with Helmet Hair, I'm just I'm trying to expose myself and my listeners to as much of Pittsburgh as possible right now. So I'm just kind of immersing myself in the food and drink culture and bringing people along for the ride while we have kind of a slow point in all of the off seasons minus baseball. So that's kind of what's going on right now. I just, taking it a day at a time, but I appreciate you having me on and letting me talk with you about the Penguins.
Of course, you're welcome back on the show anytime. We'll have to get you on during the Penguins season so we can talk about some game action or some crazy thing that Brandon Tanev did the game prior. But thank you one last time for jumping on.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. I hope you guys have a great night.
Thanks. You too.